Thank you, everyone. I will call this meeting of Environmental Stewardship Advisory Committee to order on this Tuesday, May 21st at 3 p.m. in City Council chambers. I will ask first for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I will move on to the approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor McHugh, seconded by Mr. Brown. All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, I will ask for the approval of the minutes of the November 21st committee meeting also. Moved by Councillor McHugh, seconded by Councillor Sharp. All in favor? Yes. Okay, approved. All right, do we have any public input? Any public input today? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the delegations. And we have first up Mr. Randy Henning, public member of our very own Environmental Stewardship Committee, will give a brief presentation on the subcommittee's, the committee's working group entitled Let's Get Growing.
So if I fumble around a bit, bear with me, please. Have we got video? You can see the, yeah. And I can see it up there. Wonderful. I said if I fumbled around, here I go. That little painting, by the way, is one I did in 2020. I think the date's even on there, of a little oak tree trying to survive and thrive. And it seemed fitting at the time for Terry Cassidy and I actually were starting. This was the background of this was Fridays for Future and little Greta Thunberg and youth in general seemed to be getting quite discouraged with the way environmental things were going in the world and quite desperate actually. In fact, I went to a rally in Belleville around that time, and the students there, young exchange students actually, wonderful young, intelligent, smart people, were chanting at the F-150s driving by, you know, with older men than most of them. You'll die of old age and we'll die of climate change. And I found that quite chilling because I couldn't say a whole lot to disagree with them or to discount what they were saying or to say that we the adults had a whole great plan to do much about it. So I kind of stood beside them, and I couldn't say that I would die of, I think I fit in the former group better than the last group. Anyway, that was kind of my motivation in helping Terry get a working group started at the time. And we planned, or actually we were meeting every Friday in sync with the Fridays for Future demonstrations that were going on at the time. And then we got swamped with COVID, as everyone else did, and every other undertaking of that type did at the time. And not much has happened since then. Around that time, we also, I supported Terry 3 times at council in getting a motion passed for to declare a global warming or a climate emergency in Quinte West. And the reason I did that was I felt we've got to do something. We should be planning environmental considerations, not just global warming, but plastics control, chemical control, growth control into every aspect of our urban planning, municipally, provincially, and nationally. And we do that to some degree, admirably so in many cases, but can we do more? I'm not sure how I advance the.
Just the left and right arrows.
Sorry.
The left and right arrows on there.
This thing?
Yep.
A mouse. Woohoo! Little button in the middle.
The arrows.
Let's see what happens. Good enough. So anyway, this was the background that I just talked about. There was, everyone, scientists had started warning us of it in the mid-'80s, James Lovelock being one of the major scientists that was early into the game and therefore was criticized and attacked by everyone. But eventually his point of view has won out, and I think that science is undebatable now, nor is the fact that we have to do something about the environment. Environmental degradation, we know that there's an island in the Pacific that is nothing but plastic. You know, what can we do with that? How can we prevent that accumulating more? And meanwhile, and as those students so poignantly pointed out, governments and industry have been slow to react for many, many reasons, and I won't get into those, except that, you know, and we've, and when I say we, I'm not talking specifically about Quinte West, I'm saying humanity as a whole, and Canada especially as a whole, have been slow to react to those concerns. And as a result, we've had a lot of public cynicism and the kind of hopelessness or despair that was being expressed by those young students. So the question, of course, is what can we do here in Quinte West about all of that? Well, I mentioned declaring an environmental emergency, or at least considering the environment in every aspect of every planning thing that we do. And to some degree, that's begun, and admirably so in some cases. If we do that, like every step of the way along, if we can identify existing practices that can be changed to improve things without turning the world upside down, and involve the public. Now, this, I suppose, standing here talking to you is an example of that, and Quinte West does have an admirable history of doing so. And I've mentioned these things. Why is it so hard to get the public or business or governments to change? Well, people get afraid, and you don't use fear to convince people of science. I've never found that works very well. If you use fear, you're more in the realm of the folks that would like to scare the hell out of them so they won't say they might lose their job if they use some other kind of fuel. Okay, so we also, in some ways, those of us that would see change have been poor to take the community needs into account at all times. And we haven't done a great job of, except in cases like this, of empowering the public to come forward with their solutions and ideas. So why involve the public? Well, all those good reasons. To improve and encourage the public to consider the environment impact of everything they do, and also to work to help us do a better job. And yes, our Quinte West has had a long tradition. I've spoken frequently to council, as I say, 3 times in support of Terry's motion that time to declare an environmental emergency. It's been enhanced by the committee system that in our case is the Environmental Committee, which is, you know, a timely and encouraging, very encouraging development. This is straight out of the city literature. This is what we should be doing. And all of those things I just spoke about are included in that. So I guess my only disappointment so far has been that it's been, what, 2 years now? And we meet 4 times a year, which, yeah, we meet and we've done some useful things, I suppose. But I feel that we could be much more productive and helpful to the city and to the folks around us in our communities if we could be more continuous. In other words, what I hope to leave with today is either personally with you authorizing me to go ahead and research and come back with some information and recommendations for a particular initiative that you select today. And I'm also hoping that I might actually leave with a couple of people saying, yeah, I'd like to help you out with that. Or for that matter, someone saying, I'd like to lead that and you can help me out with that. I don't care how that works. I'm getting a little aged myself. Don't know how much many more years I'll be around, so I'd much sooner there was a body of people from this committee that would carry that kind of work forward. So either way, I'll take it, or someone can take it and help me with it, or I can help them with it. I do have some experience in that sort of thing. I facilitated in my workshop on the base here. We had a little committee made up of the workers from the floor, the mechanics and all those guys. And I'd have them up once a week, and we'd come up with things from the floor that could be improved and make us more efficient at what we're doing. Things from the control office that would make us more efficient and keep the customers happy. I also facilitated a feasibility study with Hospice Quinte in the old days when we were still just going out to visit people, and we were looking at the possibility of having a standalone hospice, as you see now. I chaired that particular one with some really talented people that knew a whole lot more about medicine than I did, but we come up with a pretty good costing for it and a pretty good little groundwork. I can't say to what degree that all was used when they built this one here, but at least the momentum had started and we got something going. So, and that's what I'd like to do today, is to get something going. So why a subgroup? Well, I think I've mentioned it already. I don't think this is great, but I don't think this setup here, where we're very formal and everything's, and we look at something and say that's nice or this isn't, or take away some questions. But as far as working as a working group and tossing ideas out there to each other and doing some research and tossing more ideas out there, I don't think this is necessarily conducive to that kind of work. Besides, not all of you may be interested in that particular point we're talking about. And so it might be better with 2 or 3 of us to work and develop those ideas and bring them back the next time. And if we have recommendations, we could then present it to you as I'm doing now. And you could either approve it, say yay or nay, it seems like a great way to go, or you need to do more work on this, that would be fine. Or perhaps we need to draft up a resolution to take to council and ask for a bylaw change or one thing or the other. That's my general thinking on this. So then you have a working group is tasked basically from here to look at something. They go away, come back the next meeting, and present what they found, what they recommend to you. We decide what to do and where to go with it. Go to council if necessary, or some things can be implemented directly. That's my thinking. So basically, that's the structure I've already described. Issue-specific working groups, facilitator. Most of these ideas should be familiar to you folks. You've worked in this kind of environment quite a while. We could survey the public. There's definite ways of doing that, and I'm sure Chris could help us out with that sort of thing. But we could survey the public or invite input from the public. I have people say to me daily, gee, you're on the environmental committee. What about this? Well, what about that? And so in a couple of cases, I've asked Chris, but it would be really nice if we could have an ongoing process of encouraging the public to bring their ideas forward, get them involved, because there's something I've been tossing around. News about the environment and things we need to do shouldn't come as news to people. It would be really great if we had that kind of public participation where they'd be bought into it already. Because one of the big mistakes we make, honestly, as environmentalists and as people requesting change, is we scare the hell out of people. How many movies came out in the early 90s, the early 2000s? Thinking of one here, Goer. What was his first name? Remember Goer and the Unfortunate Truth? Remember that guy? He came out with a movie.
I think it's Al Gore.
Sorry, Al Gore, that's the guy, yeah. Well, he came out with a movie, and everything was sound. The science and all that was sound, but it was sensational, and it scared the hell out of everyone. So right away, everyone that was on the side that didn't want change sought to discredit him and scare people and say, look, you've got a job in oil. Where do you think that's going to go if and that sort of thing happens. So, yeah, Al Gore, 2006, is called The Inconvenient Truth. It was also the scary truth, and I think that's why he didn't get really far with it. So we need to be sure the community needs are taken into account. To ensure the recommendations that we're requesting, especially by environmentalists, consider the needs and fears of those who will be affected. And that's why we need public input. And we need to empower the public. And there's something called a environment of conservation, or a culture of conservation. If people were involved in that way, I'm convinced that you wouldn't have to beat them over the head to get them to do common sense, and or to scare them to do common sense things like not getting so worried about a few dandelions on their lawn in favor of perhaps allowing bees to pollinate and to survive. So that's why a subgroup. And the structure I've covered. I won't read all this out, but that seems fairly straightforward. Main thing is less formal atmosphere to gather and review information, to get sound recommendations that will stand up. I've made the mistake of going to council, to be quite honest with you, and being surprised by something I haven't considered. And overall, I was okay and I got it approved, but I thought, I didn't consider that, and you feel pretty darn stupid when you don't. And you look stupid, honestly, and you won't succeed sometimes. So if you're going to go to council or even come here and present something, you need to have your facts and your ducks in a row. And honestly, you need to consider the people that you might put off by what you're proposing and be able to either assure them or take their worries into account in advance. So to me, that's what we could do with a working group as opposed to just wandering up to council with a resolution or a motion. So let's get growing. That tree I showed you at the start has a kind of a subliminal message, if you want. Things that don't put down roots and get growing have a tendency to get washed away, especially in this economic environment that we're living in. So that's my urging to you today, is that we get growing. So let's pick one or two. I would suggest a fairly easy initiative to begin. Not easy from the point of view of not much work, but one that we could develop quickly between two meetings and come back at the next meeting, at least at the latest, to everyone else with our recommendations and thoughts on how we could go ahead with it. Or perhaps we shouldn't go ahead with it, but at least come back with our recommendations. And something that we can also exercise the process of going away as a little group, coming up with some ideas, coming back with the ideas and presenting them here. The group would also, along the way, or whoever was facilitating the group, would make notes as to, well, what went right, what went wrong. So then the next time when we took on a larger something to review and come back with recommendations, it would be well oiled. One of the things we need to work out, and Chris brought up a couple of weeks ago, is that we need to be sensitive to the public's need for transparency in what we do, because we don't want to give the impression that people are going away to some back room, coming up with harebrained ideas and convincing everybody they're a good idea. Anybody, as far as I'm concerned, anybody from the public should be able to sit in on our own deliberations as a sub-working group, and of course they can sit in here and see what we do. But we don't want to create the impression that, we need transparency for sure. And I believe that, Chris, there's something like 5 people, they would be a quorum. Is that still?
Through Mr. Chair, depending on the number of committee members, yeah, I believe we got to make sure there's less than four.
Less than 4? Okay. Yeah, and I certainly respect that. We want to maintain not only the appearance, but also the, in fact, reality of transparency and that, so that's fine. I can't see any group larger than that accomplishing too much anyway. I can see, would it be possible, Chris, to have a member of the public come in and speak to us as a subgroup? Ask them to, or invite them to?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe our clerk had said that's probably okay.
Okay.
To get some information that would help some of the deliberations of the subcommittees. But I believe he's already answered that as well, so.
Oh, okay, so we can address that later, but those are two things that came up as I went along. So anyway, my wish for today, I think I've mentioned it already. That's a rather small font. I hope you can see it. Basically, what I would like to do today is to come away with at least one of these initiatives. Zach mentioned a couple of excellent ones earlier, and we can discuss which ones we want to do first and which ones might be left until we get our feet wet, so to speak. Some of these are very simple. Some might be more complex. If you just read through those and keep them in your mind, because I discussed with Zach just before the meeting, he also has a couple of initiatives that we could look at and suggested that we let you think about that for a bit, and then we can discuss it again under new business and decide who would be interested in helping out and make some decisions as to what we will do between now and next committee meeting. Fair enough? Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for the thank you for the presentation, Randy. And so I will invite Kelly Bolduc and Hannah Neal now from Node Apiary Products to address the committee on the importance of pollinators and urban beekeeping. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. Oh, could I grab the clicker from you, please? Would that be all right? Oh, darn. Okay, that's all right. I'm a bit nervous too. Pardon me. Okay, greetings, Mayor Jim Harrison, members of council, and the Environmental Stewardship Advisory Committee. I'm here today to propose that the city of Quinte West demonstrate their commitment to pollinator health and consider becoming a bee city. I'm pretty confident that at this point, you've all heard about the plight of honeybees and the efforts being made to preserve their health and productivity. But did you know that they're only one of thousands of species of animal pollinators working around the world? These special creatures need our help, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to present their case today. My name is Hannah Neal, and I'm the Beekeeping Education and Technical Coordinator at Node Apiary Products. We are a company that manufactures organic parasite treatments for honeybees right here in Quinte West. A local employer since 1997, our company vision is simple: healthy bees, healthy planet. But we don't just have our sights set on honeybees. We have a global outlook and strive to operate in harmony with nature. My own history in beekeeping spans 10 years, 2 provinces and 2 hemispheres. I studied geography at the University of Guelph, where my love for honeybees blossomed. My experience includes 4 seasons of commercial beekeeping in Saskatchewan and New Zealand, and 5 years of applied research with the Saskatchewan Beekeepers Development Commission. I'm now proud to work with Node Apiary Products, running beehives for research and development, as well as the burgeoning Honeybee Education Center. So, let's get back to basics. What is pollination? Pollination is a fancy term for the reproductive process of flowering plants, also known as angiosperms. Pollen must travel from the stamen, the male part of the flower, to the pistil, the female part, for successful fertilization to occur. About 13% of species of angiosperms are able to self-pollinate or use the wind to achieve this. However, the vast majority of these plants require the help of creatures called pollinators in order to optimize reproduction. Pollination is a mutualistic process, and this means that everybody benefits. Flowering plants have co-evolved with pollinators to produce sweet nectar to entice them to visit, while pollen is an important protein source for many species. Successful pollination is often the byproduct of foraging or food-seeking activities. So, why do we care? The availability of pollination services has a major impact on food security globally. 75% of major crops are reliant on or benefit from animal pollination. While honeybees have the greatest contribution to commercial crop production, we have an incredible diversity of pollinator species right here in Canada. These include 800 species of bees, 300 species of butterflies, as well as moths, flies, beetles, and hummingbirds. In other parts of the world, there are even mammal and reptile species that help in pollination. While honeybees have beekeepers like me dedicated to keeping them healthy and productive, wild species don't have the same team in their corner. Several species have experienced population decline due to habitat loss through urban development, agricultural intensification, and resource extraction activities. In Canada, the iconic monarch butterfly is now endangered, along with the rusty-patched and gypsy cuckoo species of bumblebees. The Carner blue butterfly has been extirpated, which is to say completely extinct in Canada since 1993. So, what is a bee city? Bee City Canada is an organization founded in 2016 based on an American movement of the same name. Municipalities, as well as Indigenous communities, campuses, schools, and other organizations demonstrate their commitment to preserving pollinators by signing the pledge and becoming a bee city. Almost 90 cities across the country have joined so far. What's involved? So, becoming a bee city is easier than one might think. There are 3 commitments that must be met. First of all, creating, maintaining, or improving pollinator habitat, educating the community about the importance of pollinators, and celebrating National Pollinator Week in June, or at other times of the year. I'll go over these now in more detail. Pollinator habitats include both food sources and nesting sites. These can include planting native species, leaving natural spaces, or establishing native bee houses. Over at NOD headquarters on Sydney Street, we've been landscaping for pollinators by leaving naturalized areas such as rock piles and unmown strips, and planting pollinator forage. Quinte West has already taken steps in this direction with the Buster Alia Children's Garden Project approved last year by Quinte West Council. Plans include pollinator and butterfly gardens with native plants, and that is a wonderful start. Educating the community can take on many forms. It can be as straightforward as a website or social media awareness campaign. Sharing resources on landscaping for pollinators in our area specifically, and the crucial importance of conserving these creatures can go a long way. The Quinte West website already encourages residents to avoid planting invasive species and includes a link to the Grow This Instead guide for Southern Ontario. The Honeybee Education Centre at NOD has been invited to the Quinte West Public Library to deliver multiple talks about honeybees and other pollinators, and will be making another appearance this July. Finally, celebrating Pollinator Week, and this is the fun one. Pollinator Week takes place every June, and cities across North America have been celebrating since 2007. There are myriad resources for how to mark the occasion available online. Some cities invite the community out for planting events to come together and build pollinator habitat in designated areas. Participation in citizen science projects, such as the Pollinator BioBlitz on the iNaturalist app, help contribute to data collection on pollinator population distribution. During Pollinator Week, participants are encouraged to take a photo of any pollinator they see, especially on a flower, and upload to the app. The submissions are geotagged and the species in them identified, so as to help to document the diversity of pollinators across North America at this time. Sharing information on landscaping for pollinators or having a native plant giveaway are other great ways to engage the public and encourage them to get involved at home. The administrative requirements to becoming a bee city are fairly straightforward. First, a department within the City of Quinte West must be designated as the Bee City Canada program sponsor, and an individual in the department as the program liaison. Then, either a new or existing commission or a nonprofit organization could be assigned to facilitate the program. This includes the development of a municipal pollinator habitat plan, setting the annual targets, planning for Pollinator Week, reporting the annual activities, and applying for annual renewal. The resolution designating Quinte West a bee city must also be signed. Draft documents are available online to be filled and signed upon application. Finally, the financial commitment, which is calculated based upon a population up to 50,000 residents, is quite low at $300 per year, which means for less than $1 a day, you too can show your commitment to pollinator health and take the first step toward becoming a bee city. In conclusion, in order to conserve the natural beauty and biodiversity of the Quinte region, why not start small? Pollinators help to support a rich and diverse array of flowering plants in our area. These are primary producers which help to make up the base of the food chain. There are many small actions we can take as a city to join this movement, and becoming a bee city will put us on the right path to protect pollinators in our community for years to come. Thank you very much for listening, everyone, and I'll take any questions if there are.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for that presentation. Lots of enthusiasm for the pollinators. I like to see it.
And this is me at like my most professional and not enthusiastic, so.
That's awesome.
Are there any questions?
Library presentations are probably a lot of fun.
Yes, they are.
I will put it to committee members. Do we have any? Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
On your website, it indicates there's 85 cities in Canada.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's
What is the closest one to Quinte West that's
Belleville.
involved? Belleville?
Yes, and I believe Trent Hills is also involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second part, it said there's 21 bee campuses. Is Loyalists involved in this program also?
Not to my awareness.
Okay. And just a comment, I know that I'm in favor of any initiative like this, but I know that this committee doesn't have any financial approval requirements
That's
to
good
be,
to know.
and we would have to, I believe, go to council, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we? I'll go to Karen first. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you very much for your dynamic and informative program. Mr. Brown asked one of the questions I had in terms of the other, I guess, area municipalities. My question is, with regard to the, a nonprofit could take this on behalf of the city. And I'm just speaking about, and I would be looking, I'd be asking staff a report and the cost and the impact on staff. And the reason I'm just bringing that up, Mr. Chair, is we are challenged with resources and new programs and so forth.
Absolutely.
And so what seems exciting and great is also another impact and another financial one. It's not, I don't mean to be negative, I'm just trying to plan with the committee accordingly. But if the city undertook this, because it sounds great, and we could ask a nonprofit to do the programming of this, is that one of this 1, 2, 3, 4
Correct.
steps?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe. Oh, my presentation.
Like a Lower Trent Conservation, Quinte Conservation?
Exactly. So I believe in Belleville, they are partnering with Quinte Conservation.
This is who we look to help us
Precisely.
with this kind of initiative.
Exactly. So, as I mentioned, there has to be a department that does take on overseeing or facilitating, and then one specific representative as a liaison. But yeah, excuse me, the actual facilitation of the project can go to a nonprofit such as, Lower Trent, Quinte Conservation. I know Quinte Conservation is working with Belleville.
Okay.
I can't see why they would limit themselves, but I know that there are organizations in the area that would be suitable.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, Jacqueline.
Yeah, thank you. That was a wonderful presentation, and it's something that's very dear to my heart. My background is in natural history, and very, very aware of the pollinator crisis in North America and globally. A couple questions, though, because as you alluded to, there are many nuances to the issue of pollinators and species diversity. As you mentioned, there's a great many bee species, over 400 in Ontario alone. And I really was glad to hear you discuss a little bit, and would think it'd be a great step forward in terms of public education of some of the co-evolutionary factors that you were talking about, because this is something that can be easily, as you know, implemented in rewilding projects by looking at specifically specific species, specific pollinator plants that also mitigate honeybee visitation by supporting wild indigenous bee
Yeah, it's just
visitation.
providing different
Excellent.
resources
And
for
I'm sure,
different-
like, the parks would, and Quinte Parks would be all over that, because that is a very big thing right now in terms of the concept of rewilding. One thing I thought in terms of the education aspect of your outreach is if you'd given some consideration, as you also know, in those 400, 500 bee species alone, a great many of them don't look like bees. And in the iNaturalist endeavor, that's only good when the public is aware of what to look for.
Absolutely.
And it would be a great opportunity to, and I'm sure you're addressing this, to include the, is this a bee or is this a bee? Because there are a lot of things that look like bees and a lot of things that are bees and look like ants, you know?
Absolutely.
And anyways, I think that's fantastic, and I hope this gets some traction, because I think it's a wonderful and timely initiative.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your comments. Yeah, we at our company at Nod, we have a wonderful marketing team who do great posts on social media, and we've already been planning for Pollinator Week, and we do plan to like help with a bit of an ID guide before we send people out to kind of send pictures of whatever yellow and black stripe thing they see, because you're right, many of them are not even bees at all, and many bees look very different from what someone might think of as a bee in their head. Yeah. So the education can go many different directions. Thank you.
Randy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for an excellent presentation. And it seems in many ways to dovetail with many of the things we're suggesting as possible initiatives.
noticed as well, yeah, there's some
and
overlap.
we didn't plan this, honestly, I tell you.
Yeah,
It leaves me wondering, though, if perhaps some of us could save staff a bit of work if we do decide to consider this as, and of course, no promises, I can't make promises, but that we might benefit from talking to some of the other municipalities and organizations that have declared themselves bee cities and say, okay, how's it going so far, and where are the, you know, the warts and bumps in this thing, and make it fit Quinte West. If it should be decided to go ahead, that would be my recommendation. And as far as educating the public, we could certainly use that too. We have some very sensitive public members who know what's going on, but I still have a neighbor not too far from me who gets really upset at the dandelions on everyone's lawn and doesn't take the time to notice that there's bumblebees buzzing around down there surviving, you know. So there's a public education issue involved here as well. Thank you for the presentation.
thank you so much.
I'll go to Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks. Prior to you coming, I visited a beekeeper on the weekend,
Oh, great.
and I asked him about the mortality rate of bees,
Okay.
and he got very excited that with your products and others, that the mortality rate is really reducing. Is the bee population increasing now, or is it still on the decline?
So within the issue of bees at large, there are kind of two separate issues at play. The issue of honeybees is more of an agricultural health and a veterinary medicine issue, and the issue of wild and native pollinators who are native to North America live without the support of beekeepers is a conservation issue. In the agriculture side of things, because we have trucked bees all over the planet, they have had basically what we call pathogen spillover, where parasites and pathogens, diseases jump from one species of bee to another species of bee that is new in the area. So on the whole, beekeeping, winter loss in Canada is how we basically measure that, because it's our big kind of dormant period. That's where most of the loss happens. It fluctuates from year to year on many factors, including weather, regional disease issues. But our product is basically an organically certified product that treats the most noxious parasite that is available on honeybees. It's called the varroa mite. It has a worldwide spread. It was everywhere except for Australia. It just got to Australia last year, and we are, I believe, the #1 selling product in North America for varroa mite treatment right now. So it's something we are looking to contribute towards. Our product also is not found to develop resistance by the pest. Some of the synthetic miticides that have been used work great for 5-6 years, but people don't rotate the treatments. They just hammer them with the one treatment, and then the mites develop resistance. So our product has been used for over 30 years with no resistance found. So we're very proud to provide our product to the beekeeping community. And like I said, I work in research and development, so we're working to improve, understand our product better, and be in compliance continually with the various international governments that we work with.
One of the things I was surprised at was he said he couldn't buy directly from you.
No, so that's more of a business thing. I work with the bees. Because we're a manufacturer, we sell through beekeeping supply companies. So the closest one to here would be Dancing Bee, which is located in Port Hope. Many available options online, but I think it would just be challenging to be a distributor as well as a manufacturer. Do you have anything to say on that, Kelly?
Yeah, no, because our product is classified as a veterinary medicine throughout Europe, we're classified as a pesticide in North America. We have a lot of regulatory authorities that we answer to.
Maybe you could speak on the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
We have Lori online.
Sorry about that. So because we're registered, we have lots of regulatory authorities. We mostly are a business-to-business seller. We work through a distribution network throughout North America and Europe. So that's basically why. We did have a few customers that were grandfathered in that we had serviced quite regularly, but we do send them to distributors for the most part.
Okay, George, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I saw last week that the Canadian, or the federal and provincial government bolstered honeybee health by $1 million in Canada. My question is really simple. Is this program eligible for that funding? Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that, but because they're nonprofit, I would imagine no.
Okay. It was interesting because it's under the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partners. So from that standpoint, I was just wondering, because it was on health in cities, whether or not there was that opportunity.
Okay. I'm not aware of that personally.
Okay.
I can't confirm or deny, but I'm not too sure about that. I
Yeah.
can't imagine.
I was on the Bee City website today, and I did not see anything about it, but it could take some time.
Great. Thank you.
Lori, do you have any questions by chance?
I don't know. I think everybody addressed any of the questions that I had. Very good presentation, though. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go back to Jacqueline.
Just a quick question. You were talking about the division of agricultural versus not. I'm just interested. These products are they strictly for application in agricultural apiary owners, or has it ever been used, or is it used in part with conservation efforts for native?
No, it has not. So because honeybees are not native to North America, there are what we call feral or wild colonies. Sometimes colonies will swarm, they'll leave the hive, and then they'll find a nice warm spot where they can last a couple winters, maybe without being treated for this parasite before it kind of peters out and dies. But the other species of bees that are native to North America, they do have other types of mites. However, they're not the same type of mite, the varroa mite, and to my knowledge, I don't know how you would like centralize kind of like treat. You'd have to go and find individual nesting sites and kind of treat them that way. So no, I'm not aware of any kind of like large scale treatments that are going on for the native pollinators. their issues are more habitat loss, forage availability, whereas we're dealing with livestock where things are bred, things are stressed, things are used for production. So we need to manage their health a little more closely. It's a difference between a wild bison and a dairy cow.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, just as a.
Yeah, no, that totally with, I assumed that was the case. I was just
Same
curious
different.
whether.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a couple of comments, almost like fate. Kelly emailing me about this, and I was like, I know the committee, the exact committee you can talk to about this. It was great. Yeah, so it was a great presentation. I was very surprised about the food security implications of the pollinators. That was some really surprising statistics there. I guess one question that I had in terms of the Bee City process, are there any requirements for kind of bylaw related policies in terms of urban beekeeping and those sorts of things? Is that kind of part of becoming a bee friendly city, or just kind of a separate adjacent?
It's a separate adjacent issue, yeah. The urban beekeeping thing in Ontario is kind of strange because it's legislated provincially, and then each city is kind of up to their own to create their own bylaws. So there are some cities that are very bee-friendly, and there are other cities that are not bee-friendly, and it comes down to the individual council and the people in the city, basically. So there's nothing in the bee city that is specifically for beekeeping or to change any kind of bylaw in support of beekeeping, no.
I think that I like Randy's idea in terms of maybe entertaining. I don't know if we even need a motion, but maybe having Chris speak to maybe his somebody in Belleville who's kind of maybe administering their beekeeping title, and whoever the point person there is, and maybe just finding out kind of what all it would entail from staff's perspective, and maybe he could at the next meeting, if it seems not too crazy or onerous, we could entertain a motion to get a staff report and begin the process and take it through the committee into council potentially. Does that sound?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe that's a good approach to take, absolutely.
There is a specific page on the Belleville City website where they outline some of the initiatives they've taken, and I'm fairly certain there is at least the department, if not the specific contact person on the Belleville City website.
That's great, and he can also check maybe with Lower Trent or Quinte Conservation too, and yeah, we can maybe move something in the next committee potentially. Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could the same person from the Conservation Authority look after both Belleville and Trenton?
Potentially. I don't see why it would be a conflict of interest personally. You know what I mean? In my eye, the Quinte Conservation Authority should be a neutral party. And if they're stretched too thin to help two communities, that's one thing. But I don't see it as being like a conflict of interest or anything like that.
Well, we'll just bother Lower Trent if.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a few options in the area we
Right.
can probably
Yeah.
entertain.
Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, just one quick one. I'm just left wondering, we're talking about commercial honeybees here, is your forte, so to speak,
Yes.
I think. I suppose if I were one of those other pollinators, I might ask what's in it for me. Would declaring ourselves a bee city make us more friendly to all the pollinators, or could we make ourselves more friendly to all the pollinators, or are we just talking about commercial production here?
No, the Bee Cities program actually specifically leans toward native and wild pollinators.
Okay.
They talk about honeybees and pollinators. I just try to provide the context of pollinators in general.
Oh, I understand.
And that's as I say, my expertise. My little corner is beekeeping. However, I love all bees and pollinators, so I like to advocate for all of them. However, the Bee City program itself is much more focused on native pollinators, not just bees, but all native pollinators, rather than just
So it should
bees.
benefit the overall environment as opposed
Absolutely,
to
yeah,
beekeepers
absolutely, yeah.
per
And
se.
there are lots of resources online. There's a full handbook PDF for cities to kind of outline the processes and things like that. So yeah, I encourage you to take a look and
Thank you.
and see the process. Thank you.
I think too, a big focus of the whole Bee City thing is the education and awareness factor of the whole Pollinator Week and the things that we can do as a municipality and as individuals to help foster that native pollinator growth in the area. So,
Fits nicely into the culture of conservation.
exactly.
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I say, from the ground up. Bees, plants, and then everything else can thrive.
Yeah. So.
All right, well, if there's no more questions, we will thank you again, and yeah, great presentation, and
Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will move on to items for the committee's consideration. 8A, so this is the Environmental Citizen Service Award. So I wanted to bring this to the committee today to have a discussion and potentially a motion. I've had conversations with, I guess I was speaking with Councillor McHugh initially. There's so many folks in our community that are leading on the environmental front and sustainability front and really going above and beyond and truly selfless acts, hours and hours and hours. And we had one of those people even present to the committee last year. And Councillor McHugh had the idea that the city could potentially investigate through this committee, maybe asking the clerk's department to investigate the possibility of an Environmental Citizen Service Award. And I know that Councillor O'Neill also was very gung-ho about the idea and recognizing those people in our community. So I guess I just wanted to kind of facilitate a discussion on that topic, and I was hoping to, if the committee so moved it, to maybe ask the clerk's department for a report, maybe on a brief report on what other communities with similar environmental leadership and environmental citizenship awards, maybe kind of bring us some templates, I guess, if you will, or some options on how we could actually implement such a program. And I certainly have no preference whether it's several members of the community getting once a year or more regularly, but yeah, I just wanted to open up kind of the discussion on that. If anyone had any thoughts or feelings, go ahead, Councillor McKee.
Yeah, I think you've been alluding to, with regards to where this gets started, with Lucy picking up the garbage that, and I saw it the other day. I wonder if maybe we shouldn't start with the fact that Ryan Williams has his Quinte Champions Awards each year. We could kick this off maybe if this committee sent a letter to Ryan nominating Lucy and maybe potentially receiving one of these rewards. That might be a good start to get it going. And then if we were to follow up later with a Citizen Service Award for her as well, but this would get some recognition not only for her, but for this committee as well as recommending her. So it might be an easy way to get the ball rolling here, that's all. But I have to admit, I seen her the other day, I was telling Councillor Carter, she running down the road with 3 big bags of garbage. So I turned around, wait, so I'm gonna go back and take that off her hands. I couldn't find her. I looked, where'd she go? She just appeared up Second Road, she just took off. Then we found her by a dumpster. The good folks there at the gas station allow her to dump stuff there in different places in town, but honestly, she just was gone, like Superwoman. She just disappeared, but she's out there every time I see her. She's got a handful of garbage, and she runs up and down Second Doug Hill Road, up and down County Road 64. Where else she goes, I don't know, but if we could replicate her, we wouldn't need Quinte Sanitation or anybody else. We just put it out herself. But no, I would love to move a recommendation that, if possible, that this committee send a letter to Ryan Williams nominating her for one of these Quinte Champions Awards, and hopefully she gets it. So.
We could do that. Do we have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor O'Neill, sure. Oh, Councillor Sharp, go
No,
ahead.
that's okay. I just wanted to speak to it as well.
Sure.
When you, Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to, I think that's an excellent idea, Councillor McHugh. I just wanted to speak to the original discussion, Environmental Citizen Service Award, and I think this is a great opportunity where we utilize MP Williams does achievements, as does Mr. Smith, or Todd Smith, MPP. Our accessibility committee recently determined that we have accessibility, I think it's national coming up, Louise, in September. Sorry, the accessibility.
We have the International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd.
Thank you. And the discussion was we should have an award. So then it was, okay, now you have to have criteria, right, to choose and select and so forth. And I thought of this right away, the Environmental Citizen Award. We have to research other communities, make sure it's inclusive. How do we decide? Who's going to decide? Do a ceremony or the proper way? So when I looked at this, I thought, and your presentation, one of the things we did at Accessibility was we formed a working group of members to help do the research, to help come up with the criteria, the application process, and bring it back to the full committee. Because once again, and I know, Mr. Chair, we could send it also to the clerk, but I just wondered if that could be one of the initiatives of the committee to look at in the future, to get our ideas, how it would work for our community, what kind of criteria, and how inclusive we go, because we want, private sector, public, all of, there may be some initiatives at a restaurant or something. I don't know, but that was just a thought, so I wanted to speak to that. But I love that we can at least address some of the achievements locally through our existing champion programs. And it was just a thought, maybe this is an undertaking of the working group that may be formed.
Councillor McHugh?
Yeah, just a follow-up to that, and Councillor Sharp is right, we'd have to have some background and handle it properly, professionally. Maybe we could get some of that by talking to Ryan Williams' office as well. Obviously, they must have put this together, there's no point in reinventing the wheel, just might be a matter of substituting Quinte champions for environmental citizen, or something along that line. I'm sure they have to, and I'm sure they've had some pretty intelligent people look into this as well, so maybe a start for us.
I do like Councillor Sharp's idea. I think that could be a great little project for the for the working group, and yeah, they could bring something back to the committee at a later date with some recommendations, criteria, that sort of thing. I guess there's probably a million different ways you can do it. Whether the community would submit names, maybe through the website, our website, and then the committee would, and the platform, the ceremony, whether it's at long service awards or you could have it your own event. So there's tons of details. The more I think it out in my mind, there's endless details. So I do like that idea, and I think. Yes, I think that the recommending that the committee send the recommendation for Lucy for Ryan Williams Community Champions is a wonderful idea also. So I guess I will ask for a vote for that, and maybe I'll save the working group maybe discussion for the new business, and we can kind of add that into a motion. There's a couple of other topics that I had ideas to, and I know Randy has some. So.
What will we vote on here then? Because I do think that Lucy definitely needs to be recognized, and I don't know that we need a working group to do it. We've mentioned her many times here. She's pretty famous around the city for her efforts, and I think she deserves a pat on the back, which is all part of the recognizing and rewarding people for what they do. So I would certainly support that, but I do also think to have a bigger overall program of recognizing and rewarding people would be great as well. Most green lawn, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of great opportunities, and I think one of the things that you highlighted in your presentation that I think is very key is kind of celebrating the wins in front of our face and the communications aspect that I think that city staff can really help out with if we were to get some sort of recognition off the ground at some point. I think it would be a great opportunity to highlight those folks that are doing that and give ideas like the plogging. Without Lucy's presentation, I would have certainly never heard about that. And if we did get to that point one day, there might be a post on through our communication channels celebrating some bloggers, great work. So I will call a vote then. The motion is that the committee will recommend to Ryan Williams that Lucy Renault be submitted as a community champion. Okay, call the vote now. Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 8B. So I just wanted to bring this to the committee also. Had a good discussion with Director Angelo, I guess it was last week now, about, actually spoke to Director Grimman about this also at different points in time as she manages the facilities in her group. And I just wanted to have a conversation, possibly motion on having Chris update and streamline sustainability policy at city facilities, and kind of maybe bring back a report, just kind of maybe highlighting some options in terms of kind of updating the process and streamlining and getting all of the standards in line, and kind of Quinte West showing environmental leadership, and kind of highlighting that point for all of the city facilities. And that was basically it. I hand it to the committee for discussion. If anyone has any. Well, no. If you want to, what are your thoughts on sustainability at city facilities, Jacqueline?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Councillor Angelo might be able to give, for some of us that don't know, some of maybe the highlights of what that encompasses at the current time.
Director Angelo, if you would.
Yes, thank you. As many of you have heard me probably say before, Ontario is having a significant change or shift towards producer responsibilities taking over recycling in all of our communities. What that means for our municipalities, come August of next year, the recycling program as you see it today will change significantly from Quinte Waste Solutions picking up recycling to the producers having an independent contractor picking up in our area. So there's a significant change for that coming forward. We as a municipality have to make decisions going forward in terms of what they call non-eligible sources in our community. Things like pickup of recycling that's currently being done at some of the city facilities would no longer be eligible to be picked up by the producers or their service delivery contractors. So we as an organization have to decide, do we want to continue picking that up? And then we have to, if that's the case, then we have to decide on how that's going to be picked up and who's going to pick that up and process that. In addition, non-eligible sources are sources such as I mentioned, city facilities, recreational facilities, churches, daycare facilities, schools, et cetera, throughout our entire community. So we've estimated there's roughly 75 to 100 non-eligible sources in our community that would, as our municipality have talked about, we want to continue providing that service throughout all of Quinte West. In addition, the landscape in terms of household hazardous waste and electronics recycling is changing as well. And we, through Quinte Waste Solutions, are looking at options of having that dealt with as well going forward. In addition to that, Councillor Card and I talked about, some of you on council will recall we did a bit of a waste audit a number of years ago, and we started and implemented on a short-term pilot project a clear bag project in Battawa. So we wanted to see the amount of recycling or organics or those type of items in the waste stream that could be diverted from the landfill sites, and that should be diverted so we can increase our diversion rates. As we go forward in promoting more green energy and more diversion from landfill, I think it's important that we look at options for increased diversion from the landfill, which means I think our next step forward is probably a clear bag program throughout all Quinte West. But that takes some time to implement. There's a huge amount of communications that needs to be done. But that's something that this committee should be looking at moving forward. In addition to being a leader in recycling and organics in all city facilities. Right now, I can tell you there's every city facility is not promoting recycling or organics in our facilities. So that's something Councillor Card and I have talked about, is if we want to be a leader, we should be doing that going forward. And that takes a bit of an implementation program to go through to set up, but I think if we want to be a leader, then we have to show by example as well. So those are types of things, as Councillor Card and I talked about, moving sort of our focus going forward in terms of this committee. When we also look at things like waste audits and having that completed throughout even our residential garbage collection program, as having a waste audit completed sometime in the future, so we can see that amount of organics or recyclables that are still being put into the garbage stream, because there is still some that needs to be diverted from the landfill sites. As well, a number of council members will recall we have a couple facilities already that have solar panels on the roofs. When we designed and constructed the operations center, we designed the roof trusses to support future solar panels. If that's something that this committee wants us to look at in the future for sustainability, we could certainly look at that as an option. But all these types of programs for green energy, even converting vehicles over to not only electric, but even hydrogen or natural gas, which seems to be the large movement right now in Ontario, is natural gas vehicles to get away from fossil fuels. Those are types of directions or sustainability plans that I'd be looking for this committee to sort of implement going forward. And I know some of those are longer term visions for the city, but I think it's important for us to recognize those and have some goals moving forward to increase our sort of environmental footprint and be more of a leader moving forward.
I think, thank you for that. I think you really bailed me out there. My introduction wasn't very in-depth, so I thank you for all of that background. I forget, especially with the public members, of course, we had the discussion about the producer responsibility. We talk about these things at council or between staff and council members, and of course the public members or anyone watching wouldn't have all of this great background. So I thank you for that, Director Angelo. And further to his comments, I felt that the creating kind of a streamlined sustainability policy for all of the city facilities and kind of getting in there, maybe not requiring a formal waste audit with tendering and that sort of process with a big spend attached to it, but kind of having Director Angelo look at city facilities and just some kind of early, markers, kind of broad-based on recycling and organics, and kind of, seeing what kind of effects that would have and how much more diversion that we can achieve. Recyclables or organics that are going in garbage bins right now and going to the landfill. I was thinking that, if we could show some success there based on his staff report, and if council and the committee implemented it, we could build on that and go to even the curbside waste audits and possibly, looking at clear bags and some kind of citywide changes in the future. But to kind of start with an update on the city facilities made sense to me, and go ahead, Director Angelo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition, I think Mr. Brown has some experience in his past background with a little bit of a waste audit. So, you know, that's where I find some invaluable help that will be really great in if him and I and maybe another member could just tour a couple of these facilities and gain some additional insight that would help me formulate this staff report going forward. That's where I can see some really great success going forward.
Wonderful. Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Thank you for the comment. I've sorted a lot of garbage in my career, to be frank about it. But having said that, I think the word sustainability plan, I think it would be really an important component to identify it as a waste diversion improvement plan, because I think the word sustainability is such an encompassing term that it can get lost. But I totally agree. The director provided some data for me that I looked at in December, and quite frankly, I think the director is exactly correct, that we, you know, from an organic standpoint, if I take a broad look at the numbers, and these are guesstimates based upon what was supplied, it's 27% overall on our organics collection, which means that there's a huge component in our waste stream. Having said that, looking at it, the provincial average is 50%, give or take. So I totally agree with you, and I would be pleased to provide any assistance that I can, because it's an all-encompassing type of program, and sometimes you can get lost in the weeds, but without data to provide to council, to the public, it's really difficult to get programs moved ahead.
Thank you. Yes, and I even mentioned to Director Angelo that even kind of past, once you've identified opportunities for, blue bins, green bins, and pickup scheduling, that sort of thing, that even signage and kind of, staff education, there's just so many steps in the follow-through process. But to George's numbers, just in case anyone didn't catch that, what he was saying is that the average in Ontario is about half of, I'm guessing, would it be the mass or the weight? Or organics, half of the weight of the average garbage bag going to a landfill in Ontario, about half of the weight could go in a green bin and be, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director Angelo. Interested with the op center already being designed to hold solar panels, are there not companies that will install the solar panels at zero cost to us? Is that something, before even waiting for a staff report, that we could investigate and do right away?
Through Mr. Chair, good question. I'm not sure. I know the incentive programs that we took advantage of a number of years ago aren't the same incentive programs that are today. But I think when Councillor Card talks about sustainability plan, he's talking about all those type of things. And it's something that our facilities manager can certainly help on. This is not going to be just a staff report from me. It's going to encompass our facilities group. It's going to include our parks group. It's going to include our fleet management. Because as we move, and we're going to be forced to move towards more eco-friendly vehicles, getting away from the diesel and the gas vehicles. I know a number of municipalities. When I was up at Good Roads, I chaired a session with GFL and Enbridge, and all of the waste management vehicles for the city of Hamilton have moved completely to natural gas vehicles. So the larger vehicles seem to be either as a move towards natural gas or even hydrogen for their energy. So those are things we're going to have to start looking at. But I think we need to set targets for our municipality. I think we need to have goals for the future. And that's what this committee should be setting, those type of those goals, and recommending those to council to move our footprint forward, if you will. When we were looking at designing the operations center, we base it on a LEED silver sort of technology, even though implementing LEEDs was going to be substantial cost. The philosophy behind LEEDs is what we used in terms of, the solar panels on the roof, the recirculation system for the water, bike racks, trees, those type of sort of environmentally friendly sort of venues is something we strive for. And even although we didn't have an environmental policy at the time, it's something that I believe very strongly, and I remember telling council that I believe very strongly in that, to move our sort of our footprint forward and being a leader in that type of environmental field.
Jacqueline, go ahead.
Yes, through Director Angelo. Is there a similar statistic? I was very interested in the statistic of organics that actually make it into landfill and the percentage of our waste. Is there a similar statistic to the amount of recycling that ends up in garbage because it's not? I know we do hand sorting in Quinte, and I know there are policies in other municipalities about where things go if they are not appropriately pre-treated, so to speak, because that would be an interesting goal-oriented thing to look at, a percentage that we could get down to if we had a statistic at the moment. So is there anything?
There is. I know our neighbor to the east of us completed a curbside waste audit where they actually opened up the garbage bags, had an independent company doing this, and they determined through their field verifications how much recyclables, how much organics, how much that recyclable stuff could be diverted from the landfill. So that information is typically available. And our communities are unique in that they're side by side, and if you want to use a comparison, that's probably a good comparison to use, but I could probably get that information.
Randy, go ahead.
Just perhaps a word of caution on natural gas. I had a very old hand in this business a while ago tell me that the only truly natural gas these days, with fracking and its effect on the environment, is the kind you and I produce every day. And in fact, he was a fellow that had worked with Hamilton, as it turned out. And interestingly enough, that was a few years ago that I talked to them, but they were in the process then of converting their sewage plant and their landfill, I believe, to collecting and reprocessing the gas, the methane gas that's given off by those sites. And I haven't had an update on that recently, but I think it's been quite a success. In fact, I'm guessing that some of that may well be used to power, I know it's used to power generators at those sites, and it's been used to, my understanding is that they developed a scrubber, or bought a scrubber, and they were in the process of actually selling the methane gas back to Enbridge. I would have to verify that again, that it's still being done, but I'm sure it probably is if they're smart. And the thing about natural gas is if you talk to the people that know the science, I'm not a scientist, but I've talked to ones that are, they will tell you that pound for pound, it produces as much global warming carbon dioxide as does coal. The only difference is that the coal is a good deal dirtier, of course, and we have clearer skies these days because a government had the good sense to close the coal-fired power plants. However, if we begin powering all our vehicles and our power plants with natural gas, we're not going to do much better as far as climate change goes, and maybe worse, because we also should remember that natural gas itself, if it's released into the environment, as it's impossible not to do so, is 40 times more deleterious and to global climate change and global warming than is carbon dioxide. So I'd be cautious about any large move to using more natural gas. And besides, it defeats our purpose. If we start running our cars on natural gas or the electricity, for that matter, that's produced from them, we haven't gained a lot, have we? So anyway, that's my only caution on that. I do think it might be worthwhile at some point in the future to look at the possibility of recapture of methane. I know we burn most of it off, I believe, but maybe we could use Hamilton as a model.
George, go ahead.
Thank you. In 2023, the Association of Municipalities Ontario, AMO. They break it down extremely well about how much from a benchmark standpoint, and that's really good data that can be used. I would like to respond to Randy's question and the director's comments about his participation. I think that's really important, but I really do believe that at the end of the day, the company that he mentioned and a number of the major North American waste companies, they're taking their product, the methane, out of the landfills and using it as the fuel source. So when you look at the overall offset carbon, it's amazing what they've done. And I'll give you, in Ottawa, just outside Carp, it's amazing the amount of vehicles. But the company that you mentioned has done quite a good job at recapturing the methane gas from their landfills.
Councillor Sharp?
Mr. Chair, I just want to advise, I will be excusing myself at 4:30. I have a meeting in north of Frankfurt at 5, so I just didn't, I believe you still have a quorum, so I didn't want to be rude and just leave. I just want to let you know that.
I believe Councillor...
You didn't chase me away.
No, okay. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, Councillor O'Neill had to step out to another meeting as well. Yeah. Okay, are there any other comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion for a staff report for a sustainability plan. I guess maybe keeping that part broad, if it's, and then maybe narrowed to with a focus on waste diversion. A waste diversion plan for all city facilities. Does that sound reasonable, Director Angelo? Okay, moved by Councillor McHugh, seconded by Jacqueline. Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried. All right, so I guess we are at new and other business. We might barely get done by 4:30 here. So I guess there's been some discussion, and I will go around the table, but I did want to start just till we get this one out of the way in terms of the working group was approved officially at a previous meeting, so we don't need to do that. But in terms of, I don't know that we necessarily need a motion, but if we wanted to kind of discuss maybe amongst ourselves what we kind of felt like could be some first priorities, if you will, for Randy and the working group. I think that we seem to be a consensus about the environmental community service award, that was something the group could look into. Councillor Sharp's idea, it's a really good one. Otherwise, I had a couple of ideas that Director Angelo alluded to in terms of future fleet and vehicle purchases, kind of starting to think about the long-term trajectory on, what are kind of best practices and what are some other municipalities doing in terms of, maybe it's 10% of new purchases are EVs, that sort of thing. I would love for the group to look into that, and also future building standards in terms of net carbon, net neutral on carbon emissions, and what sort of renewable on-site power generation. Just those sorts of, and I'm sure AMO and Roma, and there might be a wealth of that information out there, but I was thinking that those could be a couple of working group investigatory pieces to start with, but I'll put it to the committee what else they would like to work on or have the working group look at. Councillor Sharp?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I like the B, I'm not sure, did we leave that to the working group, the B investigation or city staff? I can't remember.
Director Angelo is going to speak with his,
counterpart.
in Belleville, whoever.
Conservation?
Yeah, well, whoever is handling the program in Belleville, and then maybe also with conservation too, I suppose, and then kind of report back to the committee on feasibility and how onerous it is.
And I thought the suggestion that Mr. Henning, a great presentation earlier, the idea of the maintaining your lawn in a natural way workshop, I thought that was a good one. Most people just think I have a lot of weeds, so I can just say I'm maintaining it. But seriously, I thought that was a good suggestion. Thank you.
Just to expand on that one a little bit, we're all in that time of year when we're looking at our lawn and feeling inadequate because it's a pile of dandelions, perhaps. I love dandelions, but that's another story. So people we don't have herbicides anymore, thank God, for personal use at least. So what do we do? A number of people have come up with ideas of a greener lawn, and they make little cairns and all kinds of creations on their front lawn to take up some of that space. The other good thing those sorts of things do is they slow down the water running off your property into the street and into the sewers and creating issues for the city and expenses for the city. And there's been some remarkable successes in that. If you look around the city, some people have done really nice work on the front lawn, and that doesn't mean they have to turn the whole thing into a monument or some kind of growth. Even small areas that can reduce the amount of bare lawn there that they have to maintain makes it easier for them. It also, again, slows down the percolation of water and is good overall. So I wouldn't mind looking into that myself if someone would be willing to maybe work with me on that and come up with some ideas. It would be, I've talked a bit, we have some great resources here. We have the library who have already put on presentations of that similar sort. I'd be willing to approach the librarian and see if they could arrange a seminar of some type for people. It's a bit off season now because by the time we make this happen, it'll likely be the fall, but then we'll be into fall cleanup and we could arrange, we don't have to do the presentations even this fall. We could have the workshop in the spring and be ready. Another excellent recommendation that came in actually from Jacqueline during the week was a very simple thing. Could we move the leaf pickup?
Yard waste.
The yard waste pickup to a little bit later in the spring, and urge people to not rake away at their lawn and kill all the pollinators that have been overwintering there. And that seems almost like, pardon the expression, a no-brainer. Yeah, let's do that. A week down the line, if we can save bee species.
It would, that you've opened up a can of worms unwittingly with that one. It is very nuanced. I'll let Director Angelo, more complicated than it appears, but go ahead, Director Angelo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Changing the date certainly gives us some challenges because we've been down this road before and had a fair bit of public criticism about the dates. So we've aligned the dates to align with other events happening in other local municipalities. I certainly appreciate the different benefits of moving them, but there's also cons to doing that as well. But just so we can keep on track, Mr. Chairman, because I think time is a bit of an essence too. So we need a resolution from the committee supporting the direction or the request for a staff report on the bee pollination in the bee city. So if we can get that, then our clerk can record that, and then that becomes part of the minutes. And then in terms of the working groups that you want to look at formulating, then we need individual sort of recommendations going forward. With what Randy's doing in terms of wanting to set up seminars, we really need to put a different that needs to come back to the committee in terms of a focused sort of decision before presentations start going out in the committee, because I need to see what's happening. We need, as I say, need to see what's going to be presented, and then when that's supported by the committee, then we can make those that we can communicate that as well to the public before presentations start happening throughout our community, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So yes, I will entertain, if we do in fact need a resolution, a motion for the Director Angelo to seek more information from his Belleville colleague and potentially the Conservation Authority on getting Quinte West as a B city. I'll entertain that motion. Okay, moved by Mr. Brown, seconded by Councillor McHugh. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. And okay, so narrowing down then, if we want to maybe put for the sake of right now, in terms of next steps before the next meeting, rather than keeping this letting this get super broad, do we want to task the working group with investigating a community environmental service framework, award framework, and all of the questions that need to be answered surrounding that? Are we comfortable maybe asking for that, and maybe one other building and vehicle standards? Or Randy, do you have a preference for the second one? I think two items is probably plenty for the working group.
Yes, Mr. Chair, 2 items is certainly fine. One would be fine. What I was really hoping to come away with today was even one thing that some of us who are interested could conspire with between now and the next meeting, just to answer Director Angelo's concern and comment there. By all means, we certainly need to keep you in the loop, and there was no intent to rush out and make arrangements to have all this happen. I would, for example, if I were doing it, perhaps talk to staff and the library about the feasibility of doing that kind of thing. And, could you do it? Do you have people to do it? What would be involved in that? But certainly before we approved anything like that, we wouldn't be running off and running seminars by any means. We'd be coming back to here and saying, okay, how do you feel about this? Director Angelo, how do you feel about this? Can we sustain this? Can we make it happen?
Okay, so in the interest of times, I know that Councillor Sharp is going to go soon too. Why don't we? I'll entertain a motion to ask the working group to focus on. We'll say to be in line with the larger sustainability resolution that we passed earlier. If the working group wants to look into some building standards and fleet vehicle standards, get some information about other municipalities, what the sort of blueprint for future purchases and that sort of thing, what best practices, what the consensus seems to be on that, and then as well as some examples of successful community environmental leadership awards, and maybe bring some of that information forward to the next meeting for committee's consideration. Could I have a mover for that if there's interest? Councillor McHugh?
Sorry,
Yep.
Mr. Chair, point of order, and forgive me. Did we already pass a motion, maybe it was at the last meeting, under approving the working group?
We
Okay.
did, yeah, we
Okay,
did.
because I was Zooming, so when I came in a bit late,
Yeah.
so, okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to be clear.
Sure.
Following
Councillor
that point
McHugh.
of order, who is the working group? We haven't got that, do we? We don't have the people that are going to be on it as of yet?
This is true. I think the idea was for it to be kind of in flux, and whoever, as long as it didn't kind of, I think Randy was going to be the point person, and then essentially whoever wanted to join him based on availability and of course not reaching a quorum. We could have volunteers specifically if.
Could I just clarify that a bit? I said I'd be quite willing to take some task away with me. Now, frankly, I know very little about the sustainability of buildings. I'd be out of my depth a bit. If we have anyone that would be willing to be a chair for that one, or that would be great. The other one, as far as awards and so on, I'd be very happy to look into that myself and humbly request the help of anybody else on this committee that I could coerce or convince to help out on it. Does that seem fair?
I think we could, George.
Just a comment. I think the director had a very good comment where over the next 18 months with what's going to be happening on waste diversion in Ontario and bringing things back, I think that project on its own is an extremely large type project that is going to evolve, I believe, from a policy standpoint. So I think to the director's point, we've got to be really cognizant that we don't get too many projects and not complete what we need to get done, because the complexity on the waste diversion alone, there's 5 segments that we discussed this afternoon that the committee is going to be involved in. I know I personally would prefer to be involved in that because I have some experience, but it's just a comment, and quite frankly, it's going to be working with the director and his team.
Okay, well, for simplicity today, then, why don't we, if it's to the committee's liking, I would entertain a motion just for the community service for Randy to investigate that, and the working group, whoever would like to join him, but Randy predominantly, and if anybody wants to delve into the other subjects on their own time, of course, they're welcome to, and of course bring forward any information that they may have, but perhaps less is more given that at this point. I think that's,
Yeah, I agree totally. It's a good point about that. That's a huge ball of wax. And if you remember, I said it would be nice to have an easy win. And I say that for 2 reasons. One is if we begin working small, we'll know what worked and what didn't work, and we'll get used to working together on this sort of thing and exchanging ideas. So then when we get to the big ball of wax, as you mentioned, that's huge. And we'll have developed the procedures and been used to working with the staff. We have excellent staff here, really excellent. We'll be used to working with those folks, and it'll go more smoothly, I'm sure. Thank you for the comment.
okay, I would entertain a motion then for the working group, i.e. Randy and whoever would like to join him, to investigate the Community Service Award. Would someone like to make that? Councillor McHugh, seconded by Randy, all in favor, and it is carried, okay.
Please, somebody join me.
All right, so I believe I will now ask if there's any new business. I'm sure that I flogged this horse already, but I will go around. Randy, any new business? Other than, okay, Jacqueline.
Oh, no, the only new business is really just a comment on the old business in terms of the Great Backyard Bird Count, which actually for a small municipality, we did remarkably well. I had 12 submissions. Now giving you some perspective in the Greater Metropolitan Toronto area, similar kind of projects done, often bring in 100 and change, between 100 and 200 participants, and that's with, 3 million people. This was a very grassroots beginning. It's something I think there was certainly a lot of traction with my communications with Birds Canada. I think there is a great opportunity for painlessly doing this again going forward. It doesn't require anything in the way of resources, except with the ad that I put in the newspaper, and has a lot of opportunities for citizen science and getting involved, bird walks, that kind of thing, which really education and awareness and community involvement is the key going forward for any conservation effort or stewardship effort. So I just want to say that's a success. There will be a presentation sometime at the end of June, early July at the library, and there will be a notice on the library website with regard to that, to what the results were in Canada, and kind of Rahoo, let's do this again. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
That's great. George?
That's it for today.
Today, Councillor McHugh. Nothing? All right, well, I guess that I will ask for a motion to adjourn then, if there's nothing else. All right, George, seconded by Randy, all in favor? Okay, that is carried. All right, we are done.